Today we have verses 13, 14, and 15 of chapter 13, the Kshetragya Vibhag Yog, lined up. I'll start with verse number 13. Geyam yatat pravakshami yajgyatva अनादिमत् परं ब्रह्म नासतन्नासदुच्यते. So the verse 13 says, I will declare that which is to be known, having known which one enjoys immortality, the beginningless supreme Brahman is called neither Sat or existent, nor Asat or non-existent. So let's take this up word by word. Geyam, to be known. Yat, which. So Geyam, Yat becomes that which is to be known. Tat, that. Pravakshami, will declare. Yat, which. Gyatva, having known. Amritam is immortality. Ashnute, enjoys. Anadimat, without a beginning or beginningless. Param is supreme. Brahm is God. Brahman, God. Na, not. Sat is what exists, what is there. Tat, that. Na, not. Asat is non-existent or non-truth. Uchyate is called. So I will declare, so Krishna from the level of the pure consciousness is talking, that I will declare that which is to be known, having known which one enjoys immortality. The beginningless supreme Brahman is called neither Sat, existent, nor Asat, non-existent. So let's chant it together. Geyam yatata pravakshami yajgyatvam ritmashnute अनादिमत् परं ब्रह्म नासतन्नासदुच्यते. So we just finished the 20 qualities of a Jnani, and let us also briefly recap all that we have done in the last 12 verses. So the verses are only 12, so that means 24 lines of text. But what all we have covered, it's a good point to start the revision, because as or a recap, because we are moving to the next portion of the chapter, as it were. So we started reading, and the chapter started with Arjun seeking to understand from Lord Krishna 6 things: Prakriti, matter; Purush, spirit; Kshetra, the field; Kshetragya, the knower of the field; Jnana, knowledge; and Geyam, that which is to be known. Right? So this is what Arjuna started asking. So Krishna started explaining, and he said, he told us that Kshetra is the field of the body, Kshetragya is the knower of the field. And then when we went on to read the 24 factors of the Kshetra, and because the Kshetragya is subtle, it is important to know the Kshetra, which is perceivable, so, and which we can comprehend, so that we are able to differentiate the Kshetragya from the Kshetra, or the knower of the field from the field, or the Atman, Jivatman from the body, from our body, right? So that is why we started, the Lord started detailing out the factors, 24 factors of the Kshetra, and we covered the 7 modifications. So the 31 constituents of the Kshetra were discussed. And then Krishna went on to say that the knower of the field, though surrounded by the field, so each individual person is the knower of the field, but actually that knowing of the field that is happening within each Jivatma is actually enabled by the Lord. So there is, God is the only one knower of the field. And then we had proceeded to cover the 12 values or the qualities that we must inculcate or the wise person cultivates in order to remove the identification with the kshetra, the field, the matter. So the qualities help us remove these material layers of the kshetra from ourselves, from our the knower of the self or the kshetragya, the knower of the field, enabling us to go towards the supreme reality, the truth, God, and so on. In this verse now, Krishna says that he will reveal what is Geyam or what is to be known, the ultimate knowledge, the real knowledge, or that which ought to be known. So, for all humankind, that is the only knowledge which is the culmination of knowledge, of all our knowledges, or Gyan. So, Gyan is referring to the knowledge, and Geyam is referring to the supreme knowledge, that which ought to be known. So, Gyan is the process, as it were, or the means, and Geyam is the destination, where we need to reach the goal. So, to reach the goal, we must be equipped with these 20 qualities that we covered from verses 8 to 12. So again, I'll repeat that Gyan is the equipment, the process, and Geyam is the destination, where we have to go. So what we are reading in the Bhagavad Gita is very, very different from what we do in academics. I mean, it's a great time to pause. Most of us spend about 20 to 24 years learning. And whatever we learn in our academic curriculum of school, colleges, university, and professional training and degrees is not giving us the end of knowledge. You see, so even the greatest scientists of all times, people like Einstein, etc., the more they went into their field of knowledge, they realized that the more I try to understand something, the more I realize how much I don't know. Right? So the knowledge that is imparted in the educational systems is encashed in the world for a better standard of living, for getting acquisitions. And none of this knowledge that we are gaining through our degrees, etc., is permanent. And it will not go with us, as we had read earlier, when we die. It is the knowledge of the self, or whatever, however level we have reached on that particular path of knowledge of the self. So we might be in preschool, or we might be at the school level, but that is the knowledge that will go and continue with us in the next birth. So secondly, even whatever knowledge that you are gaining through the medium of your curriculums, it does not give you a permanent solution to the face the pairs of opposites. And these we encounter day in and day out. Joy and sorrow, honor and dishonor, all that comes our way. So the school or the academic does not provide us with that knowledge. We realize that happiness, I mean, okay, so we can encash it and maybe have a bigger house and more comfortable sofas, a luxury car, but the happiness is not in my Mercedes. It is within me, and to whatever level I have connected myself with that Paramatman or Lord. So it is only the spiritual knowledge or the knowledge of God or self, Brahman, Atman, which is the highest knowledge. It is the ultimate knowledge and experience. And that is where the human existence actually culminates, it ends. It's the ultimate goal for entire mankind. And if you look at an example, see, we all undergo the three states of existence, so waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. So all these three states in which we are functioning or non-functioning, and maybe even inert when we are in the deep sleep state, they all exist in Brahman, in that Paramatman, which is the fourth state. And it is in this substratum, all our experiences are taking place. So the self enables and commands all the other states of consciousness. The process of the peeling of the layers, which was explained earlier, so that we are able to remove the gross personality and keep on moving to subtler, and finally to the subtlest, has already been covered. So the process has been talked of. And we realize that when we peel off these layers of our personality, we start realizing that God is within us, within me. So why should I be unhappy and sad? I am pure joy and bliss, right? So there is no other knowledge, and that can give me pure joy and bliss, because I am that. It's just that I have to peel off these layers of vasanas, etc., so that my knowledge, my self, or my godhood is revealed to me. So this knowledge saves us from imperfections that all of us have, and the tremendous potential of ourselves is revealed to us, is unfolded in front of us. So the knowledge of the Kshetragya, knower of the field, transforms a human being into God or divine being. And we realize that we are no longer limited. And we identify with a larger existence, with that God that is Param or Supreme, as the verse is saying, and beyond which nothing else needs to be known. Now, since this is the knowledge that provides us with supreme bliss and leads to the final merger with God, it is the Amrit, as the verse is saying. So the word Amrit implies that we head towards the final merger. We are immortal, or we become deathless, changeless, or we escape from the cycle of birth and death, or we escape the realm of time. It doesn't have any significance now. See, and the process is very similar. Now, this process of peeling off the layers of our personality. So if you talk of a satellite that has to be launched, or a rocket that has to be launched into space, and the launch process takes place at Sriharikota. So when the rocket has to be launched, it consists of many payloads, right? So that the momentum is provided to the object, or whatever has to be launched in space. That momentum is provided to the particular object. And as we launch, the various payloads, which are redundant, but they are required for the initial push, are shed as the satellite moves into space. And at the last stage, when the velocity is sufficient to escape the gravitational pull of the Earth, so it's called the escape velocity. That means you escape from the gravitation of the Earth and you are out into space. At that point of time, only the object that has to be launched in space remains. The rest of it is all shed. And that is very similar to the process that we have been discussing of shedding off the layers of our personality. Only what needs to go for the final merger remains with us. And we are freed from the cycle of birth and death. So if you do not reach that escape velocity, that object will come back to Earth. All right. So this is the simile that I thought or a metaphor that I thought I'll present before you. So we escape from change. We take place birth only to exhaust our vasanas, because otherwise there's no purpose for us to take birth. There is no need actually. When we have removed all our vasanas and we have no desires remaining, we merge with God. Now, the attributes that the verse is using for Brahman are anadimat, which means without a beginning. Now, whatever has a beginning will also have an end. So, when the word is being said, anadimat or beginningless, without a beginning, it also means without an end. So, the concept of time goes, and we are talking of something that is eternal. So, Brahman is eternal. And in the when I just mentioned the three states of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, all these states are transient, fleeting, ephemeral. But the fourth state, which is the Brahman itself, in which the play of the remaining three states is taking place, that is eternal. It has no end. It is always there and will be there. Then the next set of expression that is being used are neither Sat nor Asat. So neither existent nor not existent. So Sat, as we translated, exists is something that exists. Asat is which does not exist. So God neither exists nor does not exist. That means it is not manifested, which means it is not accessible to our faculties, to our, senses or mind and intellect. But it is also not unmanifest. So, for example, the classic example in our case of an unmanifested thing is the vasana, which is a unfulfilled desire which remains dormant because it has not got the right environment, like the seed, you know. But the moment the right environment appears, that vasana grows up into a desire. So it is not even in that state. So the eternal essence is actually beyond what is manifested and not manifested, or it is beyond the subconscious as well. So now this is this term, not Sat nor Asat. It's a very, very subtle concept, and we can now appreciate why it is so difficult to understand that eternal essence, which actually, interestingly, all of us have. We all share that together. And it is difficult because it is not an object that can be described in words. It's not even a concept that can be explained through logic or by comparing it to something else or by combining concepts. So none of that works here. So to make such a kind of a knowledge available, the only process that works is negation. That this body, is it the knower of the field? No. And so you keep on peeling off. Are my organs that? No. And you keep moving inwards into you. The eternal essence cannot be comprehended by our mind and senses because it is beyond both mind and senses. And therefore, we have to keep negating everything that we consider, the kshetra. We have to keep negating, keep taking it out so that we reach the eternal essence and are out of the kshetra or the field of matter. So this was verse number 13. Let's move on to verse number 14. सर्वतः पाणिपादं तत् सर्वतोक्षिशिशिरोमुखं सर्वता श्रुतिं मललोके सर्वमावृत्य तिष्ठति. So the verse translates to, with hands and feet everywhere, with eyes, heads and mouths everywhere, with ears everywhere. That, meaning God, that exists in the world, enveloping all. So let's take this up word by word. Sarvatra is being used, so wherever it is used, it means everywhere. So sarvatra is everywhere. Pani is hand, pad is feet. So pani, padam becomes with hands and feet. Tat, that, sarvat, everywhere. Akshi, shishir, mukham. Akshi, eyes. Shir is head. Mukh is mouths. Sarvatra, everywhere. Shrutimat, with ears. Shruti is your ability to hear. So Shruti mat here is with ears. Loke in world. Sarvam is all. Avritya is avaran karna or cover. So avritya becomes having enveloped. Tishti exists. So with hands and feet everywhere, with eyes, head and mouths everywhere, with ears everywhere. God exists, so that exists in the world enveloping all. So let's chant it together. Sarvatah panipadam tat sarvatokshe shiromukham sarvatashrutim laloke sarvamavritya tishtati. So we have read this earlier and somewhere we feel it's not settling, but nevertheless, we must keep, revising and repeating. And we must understand that God is the substratum of all beings. Just as a wave is nothing but the ocean, the wave arises from the ocean, expresses itself in the ocean, and merges back into the ocean. Similarly, we arise from God, from Brahman, express ourselves in Brahman, or because of Brahman, and merge back into Brahman, into God. So, everything and everyone is dwelling in that Paramatman. So, again, that same waking and dreaming states. So the waker's mind is the abode of the dream world. So it is my mind when I'm dreaming, it's the same mind, the waking mind, which is also enabling the dream. And it pervades the entire dream. But once I wake up, it exists beyond the dream world. So the entire universe springs from Brahman, exists in Brahman, and merges back in Brahman. So that is one, that the three states. But Brahman extends beyond the world as well, beyond these three states also. And this may remind you of the Vibhuti Yoga chapter, right? That was chapter 11. No, that was the sorry, this is the vision of the cosmic form. And verse number 16 specifically. With many arms, stomachs, mouths, and eyes, I see you everywhere in endless form. So when the cosmic vision was shown by the Lord, and Arjun comments, these are Arjun's comments. So similarly, so they were symbolic there of that, many to one and one to many things that we were attributing. Here, the verse uses similar symbolic expressions, and let's look at them in detail. So, the verse is describing God with hands and feet everywhere. Now, hands are what? Hands represent movement, where the body remains at the same place. And feet represent movement when the body also moves from place to place. So, hand and feet represents all movements that we can possibly have. So the verse is saying that all these movements are expressions of Brahman. Then the other symbolic terms that we are using in the verse are eyes, heads, mouths, and ears. And they are everywhere. Okay. Now let's look at the traffic of life, which is continuously happening. So the world sends its stimuli, which are organs of perception or the Gyanindriya. Hearing, feeling, seeing, tasting, and smelling, they perceive these. The impulses now move on to the mind. The mind functions on likes and dislikes. It is pleasure oriented. So, and the impulse, so either it formulates a suitable response, but the intellect verifies that whether the response is correct or not. So the intellect evaluates and corrects the response if required. So to that extent, our determinative faculties should be trained, and intellect and mind should work together. And then a suitable response is thrown back into the world by organs of action, the karmendriya, which are speech, movement, grasp, evacuation, and reproduction. So this is the transaction of life. This is the traffic of life. Stimuli through the Gyanindriya to the mind, to the intellect, and again back to the mind as suitable response is formulated, back to the Karmendriya. Now in the verse, eyes and ears are actually representing the organs of perception. In our scriptures, at times in order to stay to the main thing and not to deviate, what we do is that we stick on, we talk of, the main things. So amongst the Gyanindriya, hearing and seeing, eyes and ears, they represent the organs of perception. The others are implied. Head is the composition of mind and intellect in this particular verse, and mouth, which represents speech. And the rest of the movement are, the karmendriyas are included automatically. So mouth is representing all the organs of actions. So the choice of the words, hands and feet, eyes, ears, head, and mouth, covers all movements, all perceptions, all responses, and all actions. So all expressions of God in the world that we can perceive are covered by these words: hands, feet, eyes, ears, head, and mouth. And what the verse is saying, that God pervades the entire creation, having hands and feet everywhere, eyes and ears everywhere, head and mouth, so on, right? So that is how God permeates or pervades the entire creation. Moving on to verse number 15, the last verse for today. Sarve indriya gunabhasam sarve indriya vivarjitam asaktam sarvabhrashcheva nirgunam gunabhokrita cha. So the verse translates to perceiving by the function of all the senses without any senses, unattached, yet supporting all, devoid of gunas or qualities, and enjoying the gunas. Right? So this is the literal translation of the verse. Let's take it up word by word. So sarv again means all. So sarv indriya guna abhasam. Sarv is all, indriya is your senses, gun is the function, and abhasam is perception or experiencing. So sarv indriya gun abhasam becomes perceiving by the function of all the senses. That was the first word. Sarve indriya vivarjitam. This is serve is all, indriya is senses, vivarjitam means without. So the the word becomes serve indriya vivarjitam, without any senses. So the first line is perceiving by the function of all the senses without any senses. Next line is asaktam is an attachment, and sarv bhrit is supporting everything. Cha and ev, even nirgunam. Gun is the quality, attribute. Nirgun becomes devoid of gunas or devoid of qualities. Gun bhroktam, enjoyer of gunas. Bhokta is someone who enjoys. Enjoys what? Gun. So, gun bhrokta, enjoyer of the gunas, chand. So, a brilliantly phrased verse, which translates to perceiving the function by the function of all the senses without any senses, unattached and supporting all, devoid of gunas and enjoying the gunas. So, this is what the verse translates to. Let's chant it together. सर्वे इन्द्रिया गुणाभासं सर्वे इन्द्रिया विवर्जतम् असक्तं सर्वभ्रश्चैव निर्गुणं गुणभोक्ता च. So what the verse is saying, that the God has no senses, implying, and not only implying, actually unattached yet supporting all. So God enlivens them. And here, when we are talking of senses, actually both the karma and the jnana indriyas are included. So the sense, when we are talking of the senses in indriya here, it means both the organs of perception and the organs of action. So God does not have these. Now, on the face value, this verse is contradicting the previous verse, where he says that with, hands and feet everywhere, eyes, ears, etc. So it seems to be contradicting the previous verse on the face value. But if we look for the intrinsic value, and if we analyze, it is helping us peel the layers of the kshetra. In the where we had talked about the kshetra, the 31 attributes that we had talked about, we had read that we are an assembly of these various sense organs and organs of action and other things. Now, by themselves, all these sense organs and all the karmendriyas, everything in us is actually inert. It cannot function. It doesn't function. I by themselves, if you take it out and put it in into a solution, it'll not work. You'll not see. So what is happening is that the God is enabling us and our entire assemblage and making us this, amazing person that we are. Or this is what the verse is saying, that the Brahman itself does not have eyes, but enables us to see. Has no ears. God does not have ears, but it enables us, the kshetragya in the kshetra, to hear, and so on and so forth for all the jnanendriyas. Again, Brahman has no hands or feet, but enables the movement in our hands and feet. So the best example to understand what is happening here is that electricity is pervading all the electrical equipment. And so electricity is manifesting itself in a particular electrical equipment. So let's take up some examples. A heater, a toaster, an air conditioner, a refrigerator, right? A bulb. All these are enabled by the electricity, right? So when you pass electrical current through a heater, it will give you hot air. Through a toaster, it will warm up or heat up what is being put there. Through an air conditioner, it gives out cool air. In a bulb, it is providing us with light and, of course, also some amount of heat. So electricity is pervading all these electrical appliances. So electricity is the same, that whatever 220 volts that we are getting, it's the same in all these appliances. The heater, toaster, air conditioner, bulb, everything is inert till the time the electricity passes through it. So unless the electricity passes through it, that means we plug it in to an electricity socket and allow electricity to pass through it, it will not emit heat, light, cold air. Nothing will happen. When the electrical impulses flow through the appliance, then the display of heat, light, etc. occurs. So in the electrical equipment, the electricity is manifesting itself. And electricity is really not responsible of whether the appliance is converting it to something hot or something cold or just light, right? And it is not responsible if something is burnt or not. The function of the electricity is just to enable that equipment. So when we all are here as we human beings, with all this assemblage, eyes, ears, nose, mouth, etc., so on and so forth, there is some vital force which is enabling us, which is enabling all the functions of our various equipments, or is manifesting in us. This is Brahman. This is that God. By itself, none of my organs or instruments or equipment will work unless it is enabled by God, by Brahman. So God is the substratum of all beings. That same wave ocean example that we just did. Wave is nothing but the ocean, waves arise from the ocean, display in the or express in the ocean and go back into the ocean. Gold example that we have been taking. So all gold ornaments are made of gold. So once you melt them, you will get gold, only gold back, right? But it may be a ring or an earring or an anklet. So the name, the shapes and forms may vary, but the essence is gold. So all these examples tell us that we arise from God, we express ourselves in God, and we merge back into God. So everything and everyone, all of us are actually in that Paramatman. We are expressing ourselves in that Paramatman. So the other example is that waker's mind. I'm giving examples so that, at times we are not able to comprehend what is that Brahman. So, and we start again vacillating. कि भगवान है कि नहीं है, अगर है तो ऐसे क्यों नहीं है, या मेरी मदद क्यों नहीं कर रहे हैं. At that point of time, we should think of all these examples and reestablish our faith in the path we are following. So another example is the waker's mind. It is the abode of the dream world, and it pervades the entire dream world, but it exists beyond the dream world. So this is what we are talking about. So Brahman pervades the entire creation, and it manifests itself in all our movements, perceptions of the world. And it is an amazing fact. And I think when we sit down for meditation, at times we should also wonder at our assemblage and how effortlessly it functions. So when we are talking about all the movements and perceptions, we've actually moved into the realm of the perception action. So this or action, which was the basic level that was covered in chapter 3, the Karma Yoga chapter. And I'm quoting 2 verses, but I would request you all, whenever you have the time, to read this part of that chapter, of the Karma Yoga chapter. So verse number 27 said, actions in all cases are performed by the gunas or the qualities of Prakriti, nature. And it went on to say that one who is deluded with egoism thinks that I am the doer. So that was a wrong identification with the guna. And the word gun is appearing here. So that was the first time that we had touched on gunas. Then the 28th verse went on to say that a wise one with true insight into the distinction of the gunas and action, knowing that gunas as senses, so our senses also have gunas, abide in gunas as objects is not attached. So gunas are both in the senses or in the subject and in the object. So each one of us is a bundle of perceptions, and that is what makes us what we are. And also, some of these are in the vasana form, that means in the seed form, some of these gunas. And at that point of time in chapter 3, we had detailed this out, and we had talked about how vasanas leads to related thoughts, and then those translate to desires and then action. So my vasana for music will automatically take me towards thoughts of music. So maybe I would want to go and watch a performance or maybe learn music. So that desire arises. And then accordingly, either I'll book a ticket for a performance or I will start learning music. So the necessary action takes place or related action takes place. So the type of action will depend upon the type of gunas that we have of our vasanas and our cells. So we are all bundle of gunas actually. So the three gunas that we had discussed in detail were tamas, rajas, and sattva. Not going into details here because then we deviate from the main topic. And so we need to understand the tattva or the essence and understand that the gunas are there both in the subject and in the object. So in our senses and in the objects that we are contacting in the world. Consequently, if our gunas are sattvic, we will have sattvic thoughts, desires, and actions. That chronology is the same. Vasana, thoughts, desires, and actions. So sattvic thoughts will lead to sattvic vasanas will lead to sattvic thoughts, sattvic desires, and sattvic actions. Rajasic vasanas will lead to rajasic thoughts, rajasic desires, and rajasic actions. Similarly for tamas. So kind and generous vasanas, for example, will manifest in kind and generous ideas, feelings, and actions. On the other hand, cruel and wicked vasanas will manifest in similar ideas and wicked actions. So a wise person, a jnani, identifies with the tattva, essence, and understands that the play of the gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, and the vasanas thereof is happening apart from God. So just as in the electricity example, whether you turn electricity into some heating element or into a cooling element or into a light element, that is different. That is the play of the gunas here. Electricity remains the same. So the ignorant or the deluded are attached to the functions of the guna, that this here the electricity is heating, how come it is cooling here? So you say that, okay, in here this person is so wicked and committing a murder, and this person is a saint. You are saying that God is the same in this, so you are deluded. God is the same, but you understand that the person who is doing wicked deeds has those tendencies in him, whereas the saint has different tendencies. So the wise one is unattached to the gunas and is hence objective. So the wise one understands the play of gunas that is supported by Brahman. And all actions that we perform are because of our inherent tendencies, gunas, and nature. So the gunas are an attribute of matter and not God. And once we, start removing these layers of gunas and matter, we start getting closer and closer to a pure consciousness. So God has nothing to do with our actions, whether good or bad. God only enables us. God does not act. It is, this verse is like the electricity telling us that it enlivens all electrical equipment, but no electrical equipment is in electricity. So all those heaters, toasters, blah, 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 are not in electricity, but electricity is in all of them. This is what the verse is saying. So God enlivens everything, but it itself is objective and not attached. So it enlivens us, but has nothing to do with what we do. What we do, how we act, is completely our problem. It's our responsibility, how we handle our equipment. And the Karma Yoga chapter told us that we function on the basis of our gunas, and both action and non-action or inertness are play of gunas that is supported by Brahman. So to that extent, it appears that Brahman is enjoying the display of gunas. So that is what the verse is saying. Also, as an aside, I would like you to think about it. See, when Brahman is manifesting through us, through a human being, for example, there is a lot of it that the soul or the Atman, even the Jivatman, has a lot of potential that it could have perceived. But it is limited by the body and the senses that are available. So this is most apparent when someone, let's say, has a faculty which is not functioning. So let's say cannot hear. So to that extent, the same in-living force is not able to hear. So that faculty is gone, right? So this is food for thought. So with that, we will end today's session.